Also in the Sunday Times, Mick Foley, you picked this out, Gary, was speaking to Billy Walsh, who we don't hear from that often, and
No.
anytime we check in, it turns out things are going well for Team USA when Billy's over there.
Yes, the amateur boxing coach of the year, Billy Walsh, who I will declare is a friend of mine, and we went to the Olympics together back in the late 80s, and a super guy, so softly spoken, just goes about his business. And he talked to Michael, and he said that when he got to America first, here he was, a white man in a black and Hispanic world, trying to get his name across, or his position on boxing across, and
they couldn't even understand him.
They didn't understand his accent. Sometimes I had that problem too, but he eventually won them over. He says that the future remains challenging but now full of possibilities. The Olympic squad have all turned professional since Rio, which is amazing. Of the 6 boxers qualified for the Men's World Championship next month, 4 were in high school this year. The other 2 are 19 and 20. Funding has been sourced to keep them in the system till after 2020. So now he has these 6 boxers to work with, and more will come in before 2020. Tutors were brought to the team base in Colorado to maintain their schooling, and 2 were awarded valedictorian and best pupils of their year, giving the keynote speeches at the graduation day. This is great. This is Billy Walsh in a nutshell. This is what he does. He exudes excellence. He instills that kind of behaviour in his charges, and it's just, again, I come back to the fact, that you look at Billy, and I was always very proud to say that he was a friend of mine, and now that he's achieving so much over there, even more proud to know him. He does say about the Irish system, he's not critical at all of the Irish system, but he says for the size of our population, that's Ireland, and the amount of talent we have in Ireland, we should be delivering more. So although our boxing team would be considered to be our single greatest contributor to Olympic successes, Billy thinks that there's the potential there to be better. There's a lot of investment going into it, but a lot of politics involved around it. So he recognises the problems back here in Ireland. He seems to be given his leash over there, and that he's doing extremely well. Isn't it fantastic?
Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
And a marked contrast to the nonsense that is going on with the Boxing Association here. And fair play to him.
That whole Walsh leaving situation, the waters were suitably muddied that even you weren't sure about Walsh's intentions or standing in the whole thing. But I think it's safe to say he's won the war, given the absolute mess which is going on now. He does at least say eventually they went out, got a high performance director, and they couldn't have made a better choice than Bernard Dunn, and he's already begun to turn the tide. So he's given that his blessing. Certainly they don't get too much into what he's made of the political situation. He makes a really interesting point. You would just think the USA, by dint of population, is absolutely 100% going to be at a huge advantage as opposed to Ireland. But he is making one point I hadn't really considered before. He said, in a country so vast, Colorado alone is bigger than Ireland. So to get that team together is so expensive, and it's difficult to gel a culture and a system. Small is so good. We can be so effective if people are allowed to do their job. I hadn't really considered that point before.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I thought there was another kind of interesting point that I just didn't really realise before. He was talking about how in America, basically, instead of government money, the US Olympic Committee raises funds through sponsorship and donors. And they say here, that makes sense to him. That's kind of an interesting way of actually doing things, and I guess it is probably a necessity, just given what he says about the difficulties of rounding everyone up in the same state and in the same kind of centre and all that kind of stuff. But I think what really comes across in this piece is just Billy Walsh's kind of personal touch, as a coach. There's a few lines here where he says, when I started, they couldn't understand me. These guys were from the streets and the ghettos of the United States. I had to get to know them. I had to get to speak their language. I had to listen to the type of music they listen to. I had to get myself entrenched. And later on, he kind of says that,
I'm desperate at that point to know what his favourite music is.
I would love to know.
What have you taken to?
But then later on, he kind of says that he feels the same link to his American boxers that he did with his Irish crew. And in the end, that loyalty was tested too much in Ireland. So I think that's kind of what really comes across to me, is just that kind of like empathy, that personal touch. I guess that's what the recipe of a really good coach, maybe.